All right, today we've got a story for you that honestly sounds completely made up. It's about a time when a modern military, fully equipped with machine guns, declared war on a flock of birds. And, well, the birds won.
So yeah, let's dive into this, because this isn't just some funny historical anecdote. We're going to unpack one of the absolute strangest conflicts of the 20th century. It's a story about desperation, broken promises, some clever politics, and, you guessed it, some surprisingly brilliant birds.
To even begin to understand why a country would send its army after its own national symbol, we have to start with the people on the ground, the farmers. These folks were pushed to the absolute edge. So picture this. After World War I, Australia wants to reward its veterans. They create this thing called the Soldier Settlement Scheme, giving them plots of land to farm. The only problem, the land was often terrible, way out in the middle of nowhere. Then, boom, the Great Depression hits. The economy tanks, the price of wheat plummets, and the government breaks its promise to help the farmers out. These ex-soldiers were facing total ruin. And it's absolutely crucial to remember there was a deeper injustice happening here. Of the roughly 800 Aboriginal soldiers who served Australia in the war, almost none of them were approved for this land scheme. In fact, some of the land used for the settlements was actually taken from Aboriginal reserves. It's a really stark reminder of the inequalities of the time. So you've got these farmers, right? They're struggling on bad land with no money, feeling completely betrayed. And just when they thought things literally couldn't get any worse, a new enemy arrived. Not in tanks, but on two very, very fast legs. Yup, 20,000 emus. You see, during their annual migration, this massive flock headed west and stumbled upon the farmers' wheat fields. And for them, it was like finding a perfect all-you-can-eat buffet, which, of course, was destroying the farmers' only chance at an income. Now, don't make the mistake of thinking these were just some big, goofy birds. The emus were a seriously formidable force. I mean, they're 6 feet tall, they can run up to 30 miles an hour, and they were shockingly tough to take down. Soldiers and farmers both swore they moved in organized groups, almost like they had leaders, using what you could only really describe as guerrilla tactics. The farmers' fences were getting torn to shreds, and their rifles were pretty much useless against this feathery tidal wave. So, being ex-soldiers themselves, they made a desperate plea for a weapon they knew could make a real difference: the machine gun. And their plea was answered. The Minister of Defense, Sir George Pearce, saw a golden opportunity here. See, Western Australia was really unhappy even talking about seceding from the rest of the country. By sending in the military, Pearce could look like a hero saving the farmers. He was so focused on the PR, he actually insisted a cinematographer tag along to film the whole glorious operation. So let's look at the matchup, shall we? In one corner, you've got Major GPW Meredith, 2 soldiers, 2 state-of-the-art Lewis machine guns, and 10,000 rounds of ammo. And in the other corner, 20,000 birds. On paper, this should have been an absolute slaughter. Confidence was sky high. Major Meredith and his men rolled up to the front lines, so sure they were going to win that they had already taken an order for 100 emu skins. Why? To make stylish, feathered hats for their fellow officers. Yeah, they were in for a surprise. The very first engagement was a total disaster. They set up an ambush on about 50 emus, but as soon as they opened fire, the birds just scattered in every direction, impossible to hit. To make it even worse, one of the machine guns jammed. They only killed a couple of birds. A few days later, they spotted a huge mob of over 1,000 emus. Okay, this was it. This was their big chance. But nope, the same thing happened. The moment the shooting started, that huge group just exploded into dozens of tiny, fast-moving units running erratically. The machine gun, which was designed to take down lines of soldiers, was completely useless. They only managed to kill about 12. So their next genius idea was to mount a machine gun on a truck so they could chase the emus down. But the birds were just too fast, and the ground was so rough it was impossible to aim. The chase ended without a single emu getting hit, though they did manage to crash right through a farmer's fence. At this point, Major Meredith himself was completely humbled. He famously said that the emus could face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. You can just hear the awe in his voice. He was amazed by how incredibly resilient they were.
The army actually pulled out for a bit, mostly because the press was having an absolute field day mocking them, but they were sent back for a second try. And while, yes, they claimed more kills this time, 986, it took them almost 10,000 rounds of ammo to do it. That's a staggering 10 bullets for every single emu. Just not a very effective strategy.
So the military finally withdrew in defeat, becoming a national laughingstock. The Great Emu War was over. But, the farmers in Western Australia, they still had a massive emu problem.
So what actually worked? Well, the solution wasn't military might. It was much simpler. It was basic economics and engineering. The government started a bounty system, paying for emu kills directly. And just as important, better, stronger, taller fencing was finally put up, a barrier the birds just couldn't break through.
And the difference in effectiveness is just staggering. The entire military operation, both attempts combined, took out maybe 1,200 emus. In the 6 months after the bounty system started, over 57,000 were culled. It wasn't even close.
In the end, the Great Emu War is still one of history's most bizarre and hilarious stories, but it's also a fantastic lesson. Sometimes the biggest gun just isn't the right tool for the job, especially when you're up against an enemy that completely refuses to play by your rules.